Baal was a prominent storm and weather god in ancient Near Eastern religions, associated with thunder, rain, lightning, wind, storms, tornadoes, and hurricanes. His worship was widespread throughout the Levant, Egypt, and the Mediterranean, particularly through Amorite, Canaanite, Phoenician colonization, where regional variants emerged such as Baal-Hamon in Carthage. In early Israelite contexts, evidence points to a period of religious syncretism during the transition from polytheism to monotheism, in which El, Baal, and Yahweh were worshipped with overlapping identities and attributes. Each represented aspects of divine kingship, creation, and storm power, and for a time, Yahweh appears to have absorbed the roles and titles of both El, the high god of the Canaanite pantheon, and Baal, the storm and fertility deity. This blending gradually gave way to theological reform, in which Yahweh emerged as the singular, transcendent God of Israel, and Baal was redefined as a rival or false deity. Over time, Baal was depicted in biblical texts as a false god in opposition to Yahweh, and this characterization influenced later Christian and Islamic traditions. In Christian demonology, Baal was identified with Beelzebub, a name that became synonymous with Satan, and this association extends to Saturn, who in various mythological and esoteric traditions is linked with both Baal and the archetypal forces of judgment, limitation, and hidden power. Lucifer, also equated with Satan in Christian theology, thus shares this connection, representing opposition to the divine order, while the figure of Saturn underscores the intertwining of cosmic authority, cyclical destruction, and moral challenge present in the archetypal lineage of Baal and Satan. In Christian demonology, Baal was identified with Beelzebub, a name that became synonymous with Satan. Lucifer, also equated with Satan in Christian theology, thus shares this association as a symbol of opposition to the divine order. Saturn was associated with both Baal and, through later syncretism, aspects of Satan. The terms Saturn and El are linked through ancient Semitic and Roman Greek traditions. El, the god of Abraham, the supreme god in early Semitic religions, was often identified with the Roman god Saturn and the Greek Kronos. This associates the planet Saturn with El, a deity of time, wisdom, and creation. The Baal and Baal-Han symbolism is shared by both El and his son Hadad, who was later identified with Zeus. Understanding Baal's historical and theological transformations offers insight into how ancient weather deities evolved into figures of moral and spiritual symbolism in later monotheistic faiths. El represents the archetype of the primordial father god, a creator and patriarch that originated from the Sumerian Anu, continued through Mesopotamian, Akkadian and Babylonian traditions as Anu, and evolved into the Amorite Canaanite El. Baal reflects the storm god archetype, originating from the Sumerian Ordod, continuing through Mesopotamian and Babylonian traditions as Ordod and Baal, and evolving into the Amorite Canaanite Baal. In early Israelite religion, Yahweh gradually absorbed elements of both El's creative authority and Baal's storm and warrior traits, eventually emerging as the singular deity of monotheism. Collectively, El, Baal, and Yahweh can be viewed as successive expressions of a shared divine kingship archetype that evolved as human conceptions of divinity developed. In certain early cultic practices, infant children were offered as sacrifices to deities such as Moloch, or as a type of Moloch sacrifice, associated with broader cultic contexts, including El, Baal, and Yahweh. Infants were placed on altars, throat slit, bled out, and burnt alive in fire, and offerings were made in the hope of securing divine favor. Ritual observers, often cloaked or masked, participated in ceremonies designed to obscure the horror of the act, chanting known as sardonic laughter, or performing rites that could drown out the child's cries. Biblical texts and archaeological evidence reflects a historical reality in which the lives of the youngest were sometimes offered to the gods in extreme religious devotion. In ancient Near Eastern religious thought, the archetypes embodied by deities such as El, Baal, and Yahweh, tracing a lineage from Sumerian, Amorite, Canaanite, Phoenician, and Hebrew traditions, often encompass both masculine and feminine aspects, reflecting a holistic understanding of divine power. These gods were not limited to a single gendered expression. For example, Baal, the storm and fertility god, combined warrior-like, aggressive traits with generative, life-giving forces, while El, the patriarchal sky god, could embody both authority and nurturing providence. This duality parallels the Kabbalistic concept of Adam Kadmon, the primordial archetypal human, who unites male and female principles within a single cosmic template. By integrating masculine and feminine qualities, these archetypes express the balance of creation and destruction, strength and receptivity, suggesting that early conceptions of divinity were complex, fluid, and inclusive rather than rigidly gendered. According to ancient thought, since men were created in the image of God, they inherently reflect and share the same archetypal properties as the divine, including the integrated masculine and feminine qualities embodied in deities like El, Baal, and Yahweh. The concept of the eye as a symbol appears across many cultures and mythologies, representing perception, power, and divine authority. The evil eye traditionally refers to a malevolent gaze capable of causing harm, while the all-seeing eye symbolizes omniscience and vigilance, often associated with deities or cosmic oversight. In Egyptian mythology, the eye of Horus represents protection, healing, and restoration, whereas the eye of Set, who is Baal, signifies destruction and chaos. Similarly, in Canaanite and Phoenician traditions, the eye of Baal reflects the watchful and commanding nature of the storm god, connected to fertility and authority. Greek and Roman traditions extend this to the eye of Zeus and Jupiter, symbolizing divine power and observation. Later, in Christian and esoteric frameworks, the eye is applied to Satan and Lucifer, representing knowledge, insight, or opposition to divine order. The archetype of El in Semitic tradition, as a supreme deity, can also be understood through this lens of oversight and cosmic awareness. The eye is frequently linked to celestial symbolism. The sun, often associated with sun gods, emanates illumination and consciousness, while the eye, through its pupil, or black sun, receives this light. In mystical and alchemical thought, the eye transforms external light into inner insight or spiritual illumination, functioning as a conduit for self-knowledge and inner alchemy. This mirrors the metaphysical idea that divine or cosmic knowledge is absorbed and processed internally, converting external energy into personal or spiritual transformation. In Canaanite and Phoenician symbolism, geometric shapes, such as the circle and the triangle, were widely used. The circle often represents the eye, wholeness, and cyclical nature, while the triangle functions as a doorway or portal. Together, the circle and triangle symbolically suggest an entry point into the subconscious mind, linking the act of perception with inner exploration. This motif reflects the broader cultural use of visual symbols to indicate thresholds between the external and internal worlds, conscious and subconscious, and the material and spiritual realms. The $1 bill, like the United States Capitol building, contains imagery that reflects Masonic symbolism. The unfinished pyramid, when observed into dimensions, can be understood as a projection of three-dimensional, multidimensional vectors associated with the numbers 3, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 33, where 3 plus 3 equals 6, to equilateral triangles, the archetypal human Adam Kadmon, as observed above the eagle in the form of a 6-pointed star, associated with Saturn and, in some Jewish and Christian interpretations, linked to Remphan. These numbers have symbolic significance in Judaic Masonic and esoteric traditions. Encircled by the eye, the pyramid represents a portal or doorway into a deeper, in a realm of subconscious perception. In this context, the imagery can be read as a symbolic representation of the gateway to higher knowledge, consistent with broader Masonic themes of initiation, enlightenment, and the interplay between the material and spiritual dimensions. Belief systems imposed upon a species without their knowledge represent one of the deepest forms of extremism. When individuals are subjected to initiation rituals or practices that inflict emotional and psychological trauma, rooted solely in the convictions of the imposer, they endure suffering that is entirely disconnected from their own understanding or consent. This form of coercion weaponizes faith and ideology, transforming belief into a tool of control, manipulation, and oppression. Unlike conventional extremism, which may be recognized and resisted, this covert imposition shapes the psyche from within, leaving enduring scars and a profound sense of betrayal, making it arguably the most insidious and damaging expression of extremist behavior.